Welcome to The Walk-In, a podcast where doors stay open and stories unfold one conversation at a time. Hosted by Christopher Michael Sean, author, poet, actor, and lifelong student of people and purpose. Here, you're more than just a listener. You're part of the room, part of the story. In every episode, someone sits down, breathes deep, and shares what drives them, what keeps them moving, and what keeps them dreaming. This is a space for dreamers, doers, and those still finding their way. So pull up a chair, pour something warm, and let's take a walk into the soul.
Welcome back to The Walk-In. Today, I want to talk about my journey as an aspiring actor. So here's my story. Here's Soul State, the actor's prayer. I was just a kid in Oklahoma, the kind of kid who counted seconds between lightning and thunder. Thunder shaking the windows, fear crawling up my spine. But despite all of that, I found a stage. Not a real one, just a clothes hanger that I used as a microphone, a bunch of stuffed animals, and my mom's old video recorder that didn't work anymore. And in that living room, something happened. You see, I was watching the weatherman as he was talking about tornadoes and rainfall, flooding, and I stole his voice. I remember saying, "It's raining cats and dogs, folks." And just like that, I wasn't a scared kid anymore. I wasn't even me anymore. In that moment, I learned my first magic trick. Acting wasn't pretending. Acting was transforming. It was alchemy, fear turning into laughter, anxiety turning into applause. When thunder rolled, I performed louder. When lightning flashed, I bowed deeper. Because the moment I became someone else, I was safe again. I didn't know it then, but that living room stage, that tiny act of imagination, was the first prayer I ever prayed. And it's not the kind you whisper before bed, but the kind your soul shouts when it's trying to survive. Acting taught me who I was before I even knew what that meant. I didn't plan on being an actor. I didn't walk into elementary school and say, "Put me under a spotlight." But going into middle school, I was supposed to still be in orchestra. See, I'd been playing the violin for years, and it was my creative outlet. But my middle school had made a scheduling mistake, and that's how I ended up in a drama class. I remember walking in, the boring gray carpet, tall white walls, the stage at the very end of the class, and thinking, what the hell is this? Everyone's stretching, warming up, pretending to be trees and clouds. I felt like I just wandered into some strange cult of imagination. And then came this one project. The teacher said, write a scene, direct it, make it your own. So I did. I wrote a mummy scene, full production. I had a song from AWOL Nation playing. I wrapped myself up in medical bandages, grabbed a plastic water gun, and suddenly, on that stage, with my two friends, we weren't kids anymore. They were explorers in an ancient tomb, and I was a very, very angry king-turned-mummy. When it was done, the room went silent for a second, and then my teacher clapped. And not polite claps, real ones. She said, "Kris, you have to pursue this. Promise me you'll come back to acting in high school." And that was it. One sentence. I made my promise to her, even if at the time I didn't plan on keeping it. It's funny how the universe works like that, how it whispers your purpose through someone else's voice when you're not listening for it. That class wasn't on my schedule, but maybe it was always on my timeline. Because that mistake, it wasn't a mistake at all. It was the start of everything. That's when the switch flipped, from pretending for safety to performing for purpose. The little boy who hid from thunder became a teenager chasing applause. And for the first time, I wasn't running from fear. I was running towards it. I remember the first few accents I learned. I would practice on friends and family at gatherings. Seeing their joy made me smile. British was my most popular, and I came up with a character named Nigel Nicklebottom. Then came like the East Coast. Come on, what the fuck are you talking about? They seen how the fuck we sound. You walking around here disrespecting me. And then eventually I learned how to do King Julian. Okay, my friend, I'm going to tell you very much, okay? Very much, okay? We're going to have a great time. Great time, my friend. High school felt like a different planet. The halls were louder, the masks were realer, everyone was trying to fit in. And somewhere in all of that noise, I lost the sound of myself. Orchestra came back for a few years, and I forgot the feeling of the stage lights, of the creation of lines on a script, until one year I transferred to a different high school that didn't have orchestra. The violin that once gave me rhythm was collecting dust again. So I walked into acting, almost like instinct, like muscle memory from a past life. I went into my introduction to acting class. Little rooms lined the walls like glass cases, people reading lines, acting out scenes. At the front, a small stage with a professor. Next door, the competitive acting class. By the end of the year, the director had invited me to join that private class, competitive acting. Soon, I was in one of those glass cases, an honor student in acting. The strangers became family. The script became lifeblood. The stage lights became my sun. The stage was my fortress. That room was sacred ground. The smell of stage paint, the scuff of sneakers on plywood, the echo when you said a line just right. It was church. I remember our first musical, 42nd Street. I was terrified. Singing, dancing, pretending not to be pretending. I literally got the part because another actor was struggling with a southern accent. I walked up, demonstrated, trying to help, and the director looked at me and said, "Well, the part's yours now, Kris." And suddenly, I was playing the fifth most important role in the musical. I had to learn choreography, lines, and songs, but I loved it. Every night was magic. We evolved together. Each show somehow better than the last. I remember one line. "But she called me a whale and a cobra." The audience laughed so hard, I almost broke on stage at one point. I had to improv it into a cry. The director would hand out notes after each show, but I never got any. On the last night, I said, "What notes do I need?" She just smiled and said, "Keep getting on that stage and keep being yourself. You're killing it." I was humbled and hooked. When the final curtain fell, cameras flashed, the spotlights burned hot, and the stage just creaked beneath my shoes. I smiled, bowed, and exited. And in that moment, I knew I wanted more. Because when I walked out onto that stage, as that final bow happened, and the heat of those lights were hitting me, the wooden floor beneath me, the orchestra looking up to me, the flashes of cameras, and everyone staring at me, I realized I had entertained them. Through my accents, through the choreography of the entire set, we had worked together to make, well, a work of art. I wanted more scripts, more characters, more chances to disappear and somehow find myself again. And then came heartbreak. Shows canceled, Trinculo, the narrator, gone before they could live. But by then, the seed was already in the soil. The roles didn't have to happen for the dream to take root. I'd found my voice again, and it wasn't a whisper anymore. It was a roar. Because acting wasn't just something I did. It was the language I spoke when words weren't enough. It was the way I told the world, I'm still here. You see, college was supposed to be the proof. If I just trained hard enough, maybe the dream would become real. And for a while, it did. I got a degree in modeling and acting, a certificate through John Casablancas, a contract through Model and Talent Management. It felt like my life was finally on a billboard. But then, silence. I would submit audition after audition during COVID. No calls, no callbacks. I even sat in front of directors on a Zoom call in my little Oklahoma house, but nothing. The silence got louder. It's a strange heartbreak. Losing momentum, instead of love. And I started to wonder, did I mishear my calling? Was I meant to stop here? Or was I just not good enough? But deep down, I think God was just putting me on pause. Because silence isn't punishment. Oftentimes it's preparation. And even though I didn't know it then, the next act was already being written. You all know the story of New York. How I packed my bags, grabbed what little I had, and left. But it goes deeper with my acting journey. Because after years of my craft collecting dust, after scripts became just paper and dreams turned to ghosts, New York felt like a match in my hand, and all I had to do was fan the flame. Once I got here, I didn't have a plan, just a voice, a car, and the belief that maybe the fire wasn't dead. Maybe it was just waiting for some air. You all know that I slept in that car for months, whispering lines between shifts, practicing my accents while driving through neighborhoods I couldn't afford. And with every next time, and maybe soon, I realized something. Dreams don't die. They fall asleep. You see, we can't control what happens to us, only how we react to it. Everything happens for a reason when it's meant to, and I was meant to come to New York. Because if I can come here with nothing and become something, then I can do anything. I found open mic nights, small film auditions, people who believed again. I even set up a voices.com account for my voice acting. Acting stopped being about applause. It became about breathing again. Every monologue, every accent, every podcast episode, it all felt like a prayer, not to be seen, but to be understood. And when I stood under those lights again, it hit me. I didn't come to New York to start over. I came here to remember the kid who performed through thunderstorms, the teenager who wrote the mummy scene, the man who never really lost his dream. It just needed a new skyline. To the little boy who turned thunder into theater, I see you. To the teenager who learned to speak through characters, I hear you. To the man who kept performing even when no one was watching, I am you. Acting didn't save me. It found me over and over again. It taught me that entertainment isn't distraction, it's relief. It's easing the tension on the rubber band that holds the world together, and with a bit of whimsy, a funny accent, and a kind line or two, that tension loosens. To the craft that let me live 1,000 lives just to understand my own. This is my prayer. May I never stop becoming. May I never stop pretending, not to hide but to heal. May I honor every stage I'm given, even the ones that look nothing like the dream I had. May I always remember, a story doesn't need an audience to be real, just a heart brave enough to tell it. And when the final curtain falls, whether it's Bricktown, Oklahoma City, or Broadway, New York City, I hope I can bow, knowing I told the truth, even if it was through someone else's voice. This has been The Walk-In. I'm still your new Yoki host, and this has been Soul State, the Actor's Prayer.
Hey there, this is friend of the show, Anthony Ziello, and I just wanted to say thanks for stepping into The Walk-In today. If this episode spoke to you, go ahead and follow the show, and catch us every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern. You can find The Walk-In on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you listen. And if you want to hang with our community, come join the Discord. We'd love to have you there. A huge shout out to the Podmatch community for having us with them. Their support for dreamers is unmatched. Until next time, take a breath, stay inspired, and as always, we'll walk together again next week.